Hello everybody, hope you guys are enjoying your day. Today we're going to be looking at your big winter storm which looks to be entering areas into the central United States and developing and bring a little bit of snowfall to those areas. We'll see how much actually accumulates, but we are looking at about 6 to 12 inches in some isolated locations. We're going to be going over multiple models, then also looking at the severe weather side of things, which is really going to be ramping up for areas on the East Coast and then also down through the deep south where you are going to get quite a bit of severe weather with this. We're going to be going over all of that as well as looking quickly at the severe weather that you saw yesterday because it was quite an active severe weather day yesterday. Now, we'll start off here with your National Weather Service. We have some flood watches and some windstorm warnings in effect. Windstorm warnings for the higher elevations of California, Southern California, and the lower elevations, just seeing some flood watches. Windstorm watches there for Montana, Wyoming, and a little bit there of South Dakota there. That's from that system that is going to be dipping to the south and developing and bringing some of that snowfall to the central United States. Red flag warnings in effect for Nebraska, Iowa, and a little bit there of Kansas, as well there for a little bit of Georgia and much of the state of South Carolina. We have some freeze watches for areas into Kansas and Missouri. As well, we also have some severe thunderstorm watches in effect for areas from southern Connecticut through all of New Jersey and then into southeastern Pennsylvania and eastern Maryland and all of Delaware for the most part. And then we also have some wind advisories there for right along the spine of the Appalachians and then through the northeast coast. And we also have some more wind advisories for the Great Lakes and the Midwest, and also for excuse me there, sorry for the Big Pen there, 4 areas into Idaho and Oregon. And then finally, we have some winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories for upstate New York, northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and into much of Maine there. So it's quite an active National Weather Service. We haven't had quite an active National Weather Service for quite a while, so it did take a little bit to go through the National Weather Service, so I do apologize for that, but we're going to get right into the video here now. As of yesterday, we did have quite a bit of severe weather. We actually had an enhanced risk in effect there, and we had about, I think, a 5% chance for tornadoes or something around there. And you actually had some pretty big hail reports. A 4-inch hail reported, softball size hail reported. We had a lot of wind reports, 442 of them. We had 6 tornadoes yesterday. 5 of them were confirmed, I believe. And then we had 208 hail reports to make a total of 656 total reports, and they're still going out surveying the damage on some of those tornadoes. Now, if we go to the filtered reports, they did just confirm all those tornadoes. So yeah, we do have 6 confirmed tornadoes. Still, they're going to be surveying the area to see if they can find any more damage from tornadoes. Now, here is your convective outlook for today, and I just wanted to show you this because it does actually look to be quite an active severe weather day. We have a slight risk there for southern Texas and an enhanced risk there again for southern Texas, and we have a slight risk there for parts of southern New York, and then also for much of the state of New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania through northern Delaware and northeastern Maryland. Tornado threat, you have a 2% chance there for both Texas and then also that slight risk area in the northeast. Your wind threat, we have a 5% chance in the brown, 15% chance in the yellow, and then a 30% chance in that red for southern Texas. And then for hail, we have a 5% chance there for the northeast. And then for Louisiana and Texas, we have a 5% chance in the brown, 15% chance in the yellow, 30% chance in that red, and then we have a significant threat of hail of 2 inches in diameter or more for areas into southern Texas in that black hatched region. Now, let's start looking at your actual storm system, and I won't have my personal snowfall and rainfall forecast for this today, but I will have one out most likely as we get closer to this event, because we still do have a bit of discrepancy between the models, and I will be going over that in today's video. Now, we do have this system. It's going to be moving out from the southwestern Canada, moving through Montana. You actually see a little bit of snow developing there, and that's mainly through northern Montana and then through Alberta and British Columbia in Canada. And then as we continue, you start to see through the Dakotas, Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, starts to get a pretty intense storm system, and it's quite similar to what you see with many of these systems as you get to April and even into May. Sometimes you do get more of these systems to really impact areas into Nebraska, the Dakotas, and Minnesota. It's going to start out looking like one of those systems, but then it's going to dip to the south as you get some cold Arctic air to start pushing this to the south. This would be a really strong system across the Dakotas, Nebraska, and Minnesota if you were to not have any of this cold air in place, because it is colder in those areas and it will be cold enough for snowfall. But since this cold air is dipping to the south, you're actually going to get the systems to move to the south and then kind of move back to the north and kind of move along that cold front that's moving through. Now, as we continue this, you start to see it moves to the east. This is all from the European model, and then we'll look at the GFS model later on in the video. Now, we have some very, very heavy snowfall through Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. This would be by Sunday. Now getting into Monday, you're starting to see this heavy snow. Now, central Wisconsin, you're seeing some pretty good snowfall by this point. This would be by Monday morning. As well, the European model wants to put a little bit of snowfall into northern Illinois and then dipping a little bit further south. The GFS model has this a little bit further to the north, and that's one of those areas, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Iowa. That's where I really have the most uncertainty as to whether that rain snow line will get that far to the south and whether you'll be able to transition to some snowfall there from rainfall. And that's really going to play a big role into seeing whether you'll get maybe 4 or 5 inches out of this, or maybe you'll just get maybe a coating, or maybe not even anything. Even if you do get some snowfall, it's going to be very hard to accumulate on those paved surfaces, so it's probably only going to accumulate on maybe your deck, your porch, and probably just some grassy surfaces. Those colder surfaces is where it's really going to accumulate for you. Now, this would be by Monday morning, and now getting through Tuesday morning, you're starting to see it's moving through the UP of Michigan, through northern Michigan, and then it's moving into Canada, and then it pretty much moves out, and you just see some lake effect snowfall remaining there. Now, here's what your European model is putting out in terms of snowfall. It's not putting out too much there, even though you did see some snowfall in these areas. You're not seeing too much because the European model just doesn't think it's going to accumulate too much. But as you get further to the north, you have this really nice band of pretty heavy snowfall, around about 4 to about 10 inches of snowfall for many areas, and we'll make another video on this probably in a day or two, talking about my personal snowfall and rainfall forecast for this snow event. Now, let's look at your GFS model quickly, and then we'll look at your severe weather from this event. Now, as we continue this would be by Saturday afternoon. You're seeing that system dip down to the south. Also notice you have a very tight gradient, so I do think you could actually get some blizzard conditions to impact areas into Colorado, Nebraska, Wyoming, and then maybe even through southern South Dakota. We'll still have to see about that. It's a bit too far out to actually tell yet, but definitely I do think it is possible that you do see some blizzard-like conditions. Especially look at that gradient through Kansas and Nebraska. You see a very, very tight gradient there, so it's going to be some blowing snow if this were to pan out here, and you'll probably have your gusts, I would assume, just based on this gradient. I haven't taken a look on the GFS wind map, but it would probably be around 40 to 50 mile per hour gusts, so that would definitely indicate some blizzard-like conditions. Now, the GFS wants to bring this a little bit further to the north, and you see we have that snowfall making it through northern Wisconsin. This would be by Sunday night, by the way. Northern and central Iowa, northwestern Missouri even, and then you kind of have that back edge of some snowfall, and what the GFS is actually showing is that cold boundary, of that boundary of 32 degrees or less, kind of making it further to the south and dipping further to the central United States, but not making it further to the east. So areas into parts of Missouri and Illinois, Indiana, and then much of Michigan aren't going to see any snowfall according to the GFS, or it's going to be very minimal snowfall because the GFS has that cold Arctic air moving very far to the south, but it's through the central United States, and it doesn't have that progressing as fast to the eastern United States, which is going to prevent some of that snowfall from actually occurring through the central United States. Now, as we continue, this will be by Monday morning. It's starting to move out. You see a back edge of some snowfall, but it's going to be very, very limited, and it's going to be a very, very weak backside of some snowfall, so it's not going to really accumulate. Maybe a dusting for those areas, but nothing that's really going to accumulate. Now, if you were to get this to move in a little bit faster, you would have a weaker system, but that snowfall would move in further to the south. So it's definitely something that we still have to play around with the models, see what happens, and we'll definitely give you more updates on the channel. And then you see it starts to move out, and you have a very intense low pressure system moving out, but it's all the way into northern or central Canada by this point. Now here's what the GFS is putting out in terms of snowfall, and you're saying it's much weaker on its snowfall. It's showing about 2 to 6 inches through this band, and you have a little bit of a pocket there through Iowa, and then as you get through the Rockies again, you're saying over 6 inches of accumulation in terms of snowfall there. Now let's start looking at your severe weather, and we're gonna start off here with this system. This system is gonna bring in quite a bit of moisture up from areas like Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico. All of that's going to be moving to the north, and you're going to see areas like Texas, New Mexico, through Oklahoma, and then all the way through the southeast. You guys are all going to be seeing quite high Cape values. Now, this is going to be for Saturday night. Cape values generally right around 1,000 to 2,000. If you don't know, Cape is convective available potential energy, and this is showing you how much energy you have in the atmosphere, how much instability you have in the atmosphere, and the more Cape you have, that's really increasing your chances for some severe weather. Now, it is quite far to predict severe weather, but we can get a preliminary outlook on what we think is going to happen just by looking at Cape, and then also we'll look at some directional wind shear later on in just a little bit. You see, we have Cape values. Usually you want above 1,000 for severe weather, and we're already getting up to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 in some areas in terms of Cape. And as we continue this would be by Sunday morning, and now getting to Sunday afternoon, ramps up through the southeast, and this you can see this cold front. You can really tell it's quite a defined cold front. It's moving from areas into Wisconsin, and I'll draw that in blue for you. It's moving from areas into Wisconsin, and it's going to be moving along. You have that warm front, and that's going to be moving kind of like this to the north. And since this warm front is fairly far to the north, as you get into areas like the southeast, I don't think you're going to see as prevalent severe weather than as you were as areas into the around Texas, Oklahoma. That's where I think most of your severe weather is actually going to set up here. Now let's look at your wind shear real quickly, and this is really going to help develop some of those thunderstorms. And you have wind shear. This is all in knots, but this would be right around 100 to 120 miles per hour, and you see all of that through the deep south. So that's really going to help play into that, and that's a very, very fast that's a very, very large amount of wind shear that you have in the atmosphere. Now this would be by Saturday, now moving through Sunday, and you see it really ramps up through areas into the south central United States. So that's really going to help play into some of your some of your severe weather development there. Now that is going to wrap up the video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you know this video when I do upload. Anyways, guys, that was Eli the Lord Guy, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.